Hello and welcome to Toy Polloi 2 and a special additional video on the creation of this mini diorama for my Adventures of Indiana Jones figures. Now you'll have seen recently over on Toy Polloi that I created this base for my Indiana Jones figures and a way to display them, and the backgrounds that I ended up creating for this little display were ones that I designed and made myself in Photoshop using some stock images and general sort of Photoshop skills to create something that looked a little bit like it would fit in with the Raiders of the Lost Ark world. But I also thought it would be fun to do some that were created using images directly from the Indiana Jones movies, and that's what we're going to be doing here today on Toy Polloi 2. So I've been through a whole archive of stills from the original Raiders of the Lost Ark movie and chosen a couple of images that I think would work really well. The first image is a shot of when Indy finds the golden idol in the temple. That's going to be a fairly easy one to modify to work with the background that I created. The second one though is going to be a lot more complicated, and that is a shot of when Indy is fighting the German mechanic in front of the plane. This one I think would be a really nice background, but all of the images I found of that scene have Indy and at least one other person in shot, so we're going to have to remove those, and that's where Photoshop comes into play. So let's take both of these images into Photoshop and we'll see what we can do. So the first image I want to work on is actually going to be the most complicated, because that is the shot of the German plane where Indy fights the mechanic. As you can see, there are two people in this shot, but luckily there are a whole load of other shots of this scene where the characters move around, and I'm going to use those to try and recreate all of the missing pieces. It's just a case of finding all the bits that you need and making them fit in, and using various tools within Photoshop to hide and unhide those pieces, and then erase the bits you need, using the clone tool where needed, and then finding other shots where you can take bits out of and sort of superimpose them on. This actually ended up taking me about 15 to 20 minutes to do, but I'm very pleased with the end result. So let's take a look at the whole process. The next shot with the golden idol is really pretty simple because there's not a lot going on. I just need to fit it in with the scale background that I'm using for my diorama, and then we need to do a little bit of work to touch up the top where there isn't quite enough image, and that's just a case of either duplicating some pieces or stretching some pieces to fit. Once I was happy with both images, I was then able to print them out onto some sticky backed printer paper. That I then stuck onto some white card that I'd already cut to size, did a little bit more trimming, and then the whole thing was ready to add to the diorama. And here is the finished card. As you can see, on one side we've got the golden idol. If I turn that over, we have the German plane ready for Indy to fight the mechanic. So let's slot this into my little mini diorama. The back plate here we can just remove, so that's the original one that I made. I can now slot this in like so. I've got my Indy figure here, so he can sit on one side. I've also got one of the Retro Collection German mechanics, and we can put him on the other side, ready to have a fight. I think this one turned out far better than I expected. Removing the characters was fairly tricky work, but as you can see, it doesn't have to be perfect because the end result looks like this, and it's a really nice displayable background. And I think this is the sort of thing that Kenner would have done back in the day. Although they wouldn't have been using Photoshop, they'd have got someone to airbrush out the characters and done it in a slightly more complicated way, I guess, but they would have ended up with a fairly similar result. So very happy with this one. Let's turn the card around and we'll look at the other one I've made. This one is probably a little less useful just because really in that scene you've only got Indies, so it's not the greatest of diorama backgrounds, but I really like it anyway because it's just a nice way of displaying the Indy figure. Now these files I will be putting available for my Patreons to download. As I don't own the copyright on them, I can't put them on the main toypolloi.com website, so this is a Patreon only offer. So if you want to have a go at making your own one of this diorama, then follow the main video over on Toy Polloi, but these custom backgrounds are for Patreons only. So if you've enjoyed this video, then make sure to watch the main video over on Toy Polloi because I show you the entire build of how I built the little diorama and made the backgrounds there. But this video here is just a little companion video for that project. Thanks for watching it over here on Toy Polloi 2, and I'll see you in the next video.